second episode with Dame Nicola from Atlanta, Georgia, connecting with Beverly Hills here today. I'm so excited. We're going to join our second episode. The first was, we started with someone has nothing and how they can build slowly. So Miss Dame Nicola, let's start with, continue with our conversation on what they should start.
Absolutely.
You talked about three things, right? You told me to write down three things.
Three things. The three things you want to do is you want to assess. So you want to identify where are you financially, and don't think about how small it is. We just want to know where are you, and where would you like to be. So that means that it doesn't matter what type of income. It doesn't matter what the sources of income are. We want to know what those things are. And then we want to know what your expenses are. And what you need to think about is your expenses, not only your bills, because you want to open up all those envelopes, but you also want to go into your bank account statement if you have one. Or if you don't have a bank account, you need to make sure you had receipts. Doesn't matter if you went to McDonald's. You need the receipt so you can look at how much money you're spending. And what I mean by spending is money that you're putting out there in the economy, to the stores, the restaurants, it doesn't matter, the clothing, the shoes, the purses, daycare, including, of course, your expenses, the light bill, the water bill if you have it. All of these things are expenses. All that means is money that's going away from you. So you have income and you have outgo. And then what you need to do is you need to subtract the two. So when you subtract what your expenses are from your income, you're gonna have a number left over. That number might have a plus, meaning that you have extra money left over. And then now that's where you're gonna start allocating what you're gonna do with that. But then you might have some times where if you added everything up, you're coming out on a negative, meaning that, wow, I have more bills than money, or I'm running out of money, or it seems like I never have enough money. And that's what we're talking about here. Because after we identify where are you and what's left over, now we discuss what you're gonna do with that money. So in our last episode, Dame Munni talked about how sometimes we go in to debt or go in to more expenses before we're ready for it. And that's very common because sometimes we don't have the discussions. We make moves based off of how we feel. We might be staying home with mom to save money and it's stressful because it's not enough money, and you move out prematurely. And then now you're in a harder time than you even were, versus identifying, creating these goals like we talk about. And then maybe if you're sharing, a household with a family member, what have you, now you can make clear goals to say, I know that it's going to cost, or it's going to require XYZ amount of money for me to live on my own. And then now you can identify a goal that could be where you like to be. I'd like to be out on my own. I'd like to have a roof for me and my 2 kids or 3 kids, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you're assessing everything, including where can I really afford to live, because you're always going to want to have money left over after your living expenses. And so when we talked about this in the last episode, we said, hey, don't be surprised if when you look at all that, you're realizing that your lifestyle and habits is costing you more money than your essential living expenses, like meaning what you need, like a roof.
I box every day.
Yeah, it happens to, it's happened to the best of us, because we're trying to, especially in these times, trying to just feel better. And we're like, we only live once, but you want that once to be where it starts to feel like freedom. And freedom is in increments. Doesn't start big immediately. And so you gotta have patience with this, and you gotta commit to it. So now after you assess and you begin to allocate, if you have some money left over, you wanna say, you know what? I gotta start saving. And you might say, save, there's not enough to go around. Well, if you don't have enough to go around, that is a clear distinction that you need more income. And so now, when you get to that place, I was there. I literally went from, I was a single mom, 2 children. My husband and I got married. He was a single dad. So we went from a family of 3 to a family of 5. And then we had our son and went to a family of 6. Now that was a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And so we had to identify what I was just sharing with you is the assessment and the allocation. We saw really quickly with that system, we needed more money. Now, it was a tough time. It was during the crash of 2008. Mm-hmm. I was a hairstylist. We were selling real estate on the side. My husband did construction. We were doing the flip. We were buying property and flipping, and all of that still was not enough. The bank shut everything down. The reason I'm sharing parts of my story, and I will all the way throughout, is because I want you to know, never feel ashamed of where you are. Because that story is going to help someone later on. And more importantly, it doesn't have to be your story forever. Yes, and so that assessment of knowing that we can't live like this. What other options are available? Well, if all you have is a real estate license and the real estate is going down, all you have is a cosmetologist license and your clients are losing their jobs,
well, you're starting to look at that time. Didn't we lost a lot in the stock market that time too? I lost a lot.
Absolutely. Uh-huh. Things were going down everywhere. Every investment I made, it was like a brick wall. And then I said, hey, there has to be someone making money somewhere. And I want you to always tell yourself that. Let that be a small affirmation. Anytime things are looking bad in any area of your life, you could say someone is happier in that life or that section or that situation somewhere, and I want to join that crew. And that's when I said, hey, there's someone making money somewhere. And I ended up in network marketing. People, they might have their negative stigmas. Oh, you got to sell or whatever. People are always being sold to, right? If you are one that you're running out of money, somebody was selling to you, weren't they? And you were buying. So what you want to know is, no, you don't think of it like that. It is a career. You might say, well, I need some more income. Maybe you have a gift. Maybe you know how to, make something that the world needs. Everyone has that gift. And you can turn that into a small business right from your apartment, right from your home, right from wherever you are. And so what I want you to think about, for me, I ended up in network marketing. Well, I worked hard. I put that same work ethic, and I want you to know something. With income is going to come work. You have to put in the work to create your foundation. Don't ever expect anything less. And then the work, you probably have to front load, put in a lot of work on the front end, but then it will pay off. This is a law. You will reap what you've sown in due time. So I don't want you to get tired too quickly. I want you to know that if you operate in these laws of saying, I'm willing to put in the work, you need to say that. And the work necessary sometimes is the mental work.
Because work needs to start in the morning.
Yeah, the mental work.
You can't be getting up midday and say, hello, I'm here.
You got to start early.
That's right.
You got to be an early riser. And guess what? Sometimes you're going to go to bed late too, but don't let your time be wasted.
That's right.
Assess and allocate. And the third thing I want to tell you about is automating, meaning take it off the top. Now I'm going to tell you, I use this in a lot of ways. I'm going to show you first about money because that's what we were talking about. So when you start automating and you identify and you say, you know what? My primary bills need to go out on a certain date. And if you have a bank account, and if you don't, I highly encourage you that you do. If credit is stopping you from having a bank account, we're going to talk about that shortly. Okay? There are ways that you can get a bank account, and there are ways online that even with less than perfect credit that you can start there, and we want you to do that. But I will talk with you about that in a moment. So when we start talking about automating, you want to make sure that the priority expenses are paid on time. You want to add integrity with your habits around money. Let's think about it for a moment. If you're going to reap what you sow, if you start a business, don't you want people to pay you on time? Absolutely. If you had a job, wouldn't you want the employer to pay you on time? Absolutely. So you can just apply some small habits that are universal that will make sure that good things are coming back to you. So you want to make sure that your priorities are paid first. And then now you look at what you have left over, and then now your next priority is saving. I encourage you to start off with that minimum 5% of your income and then increase that to 10%. You're saving to invest. So in the beginning, you're saving so you can get ahead of your game with the bills. You need more money. You need, in case something happens to interrupt your income, you're saving. And sometimes that's going to take a little time to save up an extra month, 2 months, or 3 months of your bills.
That's right.
But you got to make sure that saving is automated. That needs to be a priority expense.
And saving means not touching it. You don't have it no more.
Put it somewhere where you don't touch it. Not in the same account that you're writing your checks for your bills.
That's right.
That needs to go automatically to another account, and your savings should always reap interest. So you're going to ask your banker, what type of accounts do you have that I can get to save where you're paying me interest? They will pull out, because bank accounts are like products. They know this was what you were required, but I want you to be careful. Don't go into any account where you can't maintain the minimum balance, because it's going to cost you more money.
That's right.
Don't go into any account where there are excessive fees to have that account. So you're going to ask them, do you have any accounts like this for free? If they say, well, no, well, then you make sure that you're saving to invest. So you're going to save, and you're going to ask them, I want some money back. And you don't want it to where you have to hold the money there, because in case you need it for an emergency, you need access to it. But there are other accounts that may pay you more interest if you allow the bank to hold it longer. You make that assessment. Remember, assess and then allocate, and then you automate. So now when we start talking about automating, you want the savings to go automatically away, and then you're going to find that, wait a minute, maybe I can't go to the movies every single week, or maybe other movies now might be Netflix. Maybe I need to get rid of or minimize my cable bill, or maybe I need to not buy as many games, what have you, for my kid. You may need to do that.
A new cell phone.
Exactly. And with your cell phones, that's you need a flat payment cell phone bill. So that is a expense that is predictable. You know exactly how much that's going to cost you every single month, because if not, your budget is not going to work. And so it's okay to downgrade the phone, because we're going to show you how to make income with the phone. It's okay to downgrade the phone until you can come up, and you know what I'm talking about. So what I need you to do is be realistic that you're trying to meet a goal, and it's going to come with a sacrifice. A sacrifice does not have to be ultimately so painful. It does not have to break your heart, because what we're trying to do is build you up. So you got to decide, remember, where you are from where you want to be. You got to decide, do you really want to go this place? And then now that's going to help you to change your habits just so you can get where you're trying to go. And so now we looked at that and we said, okay, we got the expenses, and one of my expenses is rent. Whoa, how much is that costing you? Because you're never going to see that money again. I don't care how beautiful the apartment is. I don't care how nice the neighborhood is. It's not coming back to you. It's not going to help you build anything. Many a time, not even credibility when it comes to the credit bureaus. So what I need you to be thinking about is, if I'm renting, my savings need to go toward changing that ASAP. If you like that neighborhood, and if it's possible, talk with the landlord as to, I want to be an owner. I don't want to be a renter all my life. Is this a possibility here? Well, you know, if it's an apartment, that's not the possibility, right? And that's so right. You want to take a look at that and say, okay, it's okay to downgrade for a little bit, because a mortgage in a lower level neighborhood is way better than rent in an upper class neighborhood. Because at least that mortgage gives you the opportunity to accumulate more cash flow, because guess what? You say, hey, this is just for a little bit of time. I'm gonna live here so that I can manage my expenses properly.
Nicola, excuse me, let's repeat this again. It's better to have an investment
yes.
in a bad neighborhood or the neighborhood you don't want to be, than yes. to go rent in a fancy neighborhood
That's
where
right.
you have money going out, nothing coming in.
Absolutely.
Because in the US, you can build that assets to
That's
have,
right.
You can even have a passive income, right?
You can have passive income, and when your property starts to gain what they call equity, meaning it's worth more than what you paid for it, what I need you to know is you can also now, when we talk about credit later, you can go and borrow money against that house for even a down payment for the next house, or to even now upgrade or get a business or increase more income. Remember we talked about income?
That's right.
I always like to tell people, I like to teach lessons in stories. So for me, my first property I purchased, it was considered, and they may not even have these anymore, it was a lease purchase. They do have those. I went into a rental situation, and the gentleman said, I can put down a certain amount of money after I paid a certain amount of payments for rent. Now some of those payments started going towards me purchasing. I had to then qualify for a mortgage. Now that's where I began to realize, whoa, I wasn't prepared. I didn't have credit, but I'm gonna fast forward and we'll go back to the credit lesson later. Long story short, I was able to get in that property, sell that property to go to another property. Now that property was probably not the best neighborhood, but guess what? That neighborhood, the property value increased. I was able to get a renter to pay the rent for me, and I was able to now use that rent where it did not count against my debt to income ratio and move into a beautiful neighborhood to where I was young. I was literally 23 years old, and people are like, what are you doing living in this kind of neighborhood at 23? So from 19 to 23, I was able to now increase not only my net worth, meaning what I was worth in assets, but I was also able to now live in a nicer neighborhood without stressing myself out financially. Now, guess what? I was able to use some of that money and get another salon. This time it wasn't just me. I had a few people in the salon working, and guess what? They literally paid the rent for the salon, so I had more cash flow. But it all started with the sacrifice of me being willing to live in a neighborhood where people might say that wasn't the best neighborhood, but you create safety measures around your home. And then now you use that because you have the goal, right? You know where you're wanting to be. Later on, I was able to, once you're able to see, when the banks are able to see that you're able to own property, pay on time, pay your bills on time, it builds up your credit. And now I'm able to move into a 20,000 square foot home after many, many homes later. I've owned many homes, and it's a system. But I'll never forget the humble beginnings of that lease purchase. So what I'm sharing with you is not what I'm talking to you from a book, is what I actually know.
Nicole, let me ask you something. Since you said I'm African American, right? And there are so many people sitting there. You also came from underprivileged family. You have to have all of this. did you find any system in US that stopped you from doing what you're doing?
Absolutely. And you know, the corporate America structure is different.
And we're talking about from here, right where you come from here to now you stabilize yourself financially, to only to that point. You don't need to go to corporate America. Let's stay here and the middle class family that we can raise the children, right?
I would say that entrepreneurship is the stretch for me. You can start with a job, but the way that you can scale how fast, you get more control when you're controlling your income. You can't do that with a job because no matter what, it's about what the job is willing to pay you. So you can use your income like we talked about and save and create where there is an additional stream of income that may be passive, but that is where you're gonna find it inside of investments, investing in a business, investing in the real estate, investing in things that will pay you interest back. Those are the ways that you are able to, now they call it free enterprise, because you have a structure, and I just have to be very transparent. You have a structure in America where you can use it as a stepping stone, but it will never take you into full financial independence unless you do what we told you first, to assess and allocate monies from that income to now move into larger opportunities. That is not
basically everybody needs to have a plan.
You have to have a plan
and sit for someone. Okay, you see this happened, but I'm saying is we need to stand on our feet and look around that knowledge.
There's opportunities,
right?
There are vast opportunities, and it's all about your choices. It's all about your decisions.
You have seen in the salon.
Yes, I could have stayed there and I could have just kept trying to figure out how I was going to make the hair salon work when I saw that it was changing. My industry was changing. You have to be a little flexible and you have to be willing for the sacrifice, because if I was not flexible, I would have gone down with something that I saw was changing. I saw that that industry was changing. I tell people all the time, I don't know who in your audience might remember Blockbuster. Well, Blockbuster was a way for people, if you didn't want to go to the movies, it was the less expensive way for you to see blockbuster movies at home with your family.
That's right.
So you can walk into a building and you can rent a movie and go home and watch it and then you return it. Well, there was a company called Netflix that came around and said, hey, you don't even have to go to the store. You can download and you can now have unlimited movies every month from the comfort of your own home, your phone, your computer. But Blockbuster didn't see the change happening. They thought people would still want to come in because they had a very established business.
That's right.
But once people saw the change, that it was possible, they said, I'd rather not keep getting these late fees from Blockbuster. I'd rather not have to leave my home, or rather not want a movie that wasn't available because it was already pre-rented by someone else. Now, Blockbuster could have still been in the game if they were flexible to even be open to what Netflix was doing, because Blockbuster had it cornered.
That's right.
It's the same thing on when people see things changing, like right now, we're moving into a very online space. I don't want you to feel about all what you can't do or what you haven't done before. That's just right. Realizing that there are changes, and if so many other people are making those changes, so can you. You just got to be open and flexible to it. It's going to be
right there, and we're going to take a short break.
All right.
Make a change, right? That's where we're ending up right now.
Make a change.
Be ready to make a change, financial change.
Yes.
And whatever job, whatever. So be ready to change. So we will continue, and then we're going to continue with our financial literacy with Dame Nicola. Yeah, thank you.